Tyler of ThrabenU here for another Legacy stream. This deck list is brought to you by Lomer Boy, aka Connor Fulse, who shipped me about 3 different deck lists. I don't know, it might have been like 7 different deck lists before we actually settled on playing this one. In the pre-ban world, I was originally going to be streaming with a Lutri deck list that he threw together, but then he built this for the post-ban world and was pretty excited about it. And he got a 5-0 with it on his first try. So I figured I should give this a go on the stream and see how it feels. So today we are going to be playing with an Esper control deck that is maybe not built around Yorion, because I don't really think that's true, but it is playing Yorion and has some degree of synergy with it. So for blink targets, we have Astrolabe, Baleful Strix, and Snapcaster Mage as the primary things that we're going to blink. However, we can also reset the loyalty on our Planeswalkers, which is especially important with Narset, which does not have a plus, right? So normally you minus Narset twice, you get 2 cards out of it, and then it just sits on the board waiting to soak up a couple of points of damage. But with this deck, we can play Narset, get 2 cards out of it, 2 turns later, play Yorion, reset the loyalty out of it, and potentially get 2 more cards out of it. So that's a really interesting combo as well. And if we look at kind of the loyalty abilities that are on the non-Jace Planeswalkers here, Teferi aggressively ticks down, right? Like, of starting loyalty, 3 of the 4 is used for the minus. And similarly, Kaya has a -1 as well as a -5. So if you're aggressively exiling things, after about 2 turns with Kaya, you might want to reset the loyalty. And that's kind of convenient, considering that this is a 3-drop and this is a 5-drop. Although, admittedly, I think most of the time we're going to cast Yorion quite late into these games. We have a lot of the traditional stuffs that an Esper control deck might have. I really like Savine's Reclamation in this deck list. It gets so much value just between oh, my Astrolabe got countered, I can get that back. Mentor, or one of my other amazing 3-drop threats got countered, I can get that back. I can get back Snapcaster from the graveyard, so I can essentially get back one of my critical spells again. There is a lot of synergy in this deck. It's not as synergistic as, say, something like Death and Taxes, where everything is really working together to try to pinch your opponent from one specific direction. But there's a lot of small synergies that work together. The ETB draw a card stuff with Yorion, the Savine's Reclamation with your Planeswalkers, the Snapcaster Mages with your spell. There's a lot of little 1 to 2 card combinations that really work well in this deck list. The sideboard has some things that are kind of cute in it. Deafening Silence is really good when you are also running counter spells, because your opponent goes, I'm going to do a thing, and you go, no, I'm going to stop it with Force of Will, and they don't get to counter back. So between Deafening Silence and Teferi, you end up being really good at fighting using your Force of Wills and your Drown in the Locks. And I like that about it. You have some extra counter spells in the sideboard. You have Bitter Blossom, which, I love that card. It takes over games. It's great. You have Back to Basics for some multicolored decks that aren't built around Astrolabe. And then you just have some other flexible cards like Rest in Peace and Council's Judgments that can come in a lot of situations. A 2-of sideboard plan like this isn't super common anymore. It used to be that a lot of Death and Taxes sideboards looked like this. There was a time where it was 2 Containment Priests, 2 Rest in Peace, 2 Surgical Extraction, 2 Council's Judgments, 2 Cataclysms, and it used to look like that, and now it's not so much the case. I can pull up a deck list at random here and maybe try to show off why that is. Let's try the Slivers deck. Yeah, this will work. So if we just look at the sideboard of a random deck, a lot of times when you're building a sideboard, you're trying to combat specific problems, and so you need greater numbers of cards for those problems. So for example, essentially this deck is saying, I have trouble versus graveyard decks, and I have trouble versus combo decks. So essentially, this sideboard has 4 cards for graveyard, 7 cards for combo, and 4 cards that are flexible that can be boarded in. And if we look at a sideboard for a Karn-based deck, most of the time those sideboards look like, these are all of my tutor targets. I get the ability to solve like one problem targetedly, and then a few flexible cards that I can bring in multiple cases. And so it's often the case that you're using your sideboard to patch up specific matchups and specific problems. But in this Esper Yorion deck, if we take a look at the main deck, a lot of the cards here are super flexible, right? So we don't necessarily need the same hyper-specific answers in the sideboard that a lot of other decks might need. So that's why this sideboard is able to look like that. And the overall result is you get a little bit of flexibility. Because if we look at the things that are good against combo, we're probably looking at about 8 cards. If we look at the things that are good against control, it'll depend a little bit about like what flavor of control is, but you have at least 4 cards here, maybe 6 depending on like how focused on the graveyard that deck is. And then if you look at like what am I going to play against something like Eldrazi Post, maybe it's something like this. So you get to make small adjustments with these flexible cards, but because you are an 80-card main deck, you're not always necessarily going to be able to board out everything that's bad. Oh wow, 11-2 now, Lomer Boy, with this. Well done. So Lomer Boy and I have been discussing some changes to the deck list. I had already borrowed the cards before he ran through another league today, so I didn't make any changes. But we kind of thought that the 4th Snapcaster Mage might be a little bit too much, and we were talking about like a Cling to Dust or maybe another Drown in the Lock or something to kind of round out the deck list a little bit more. But we'll kind of see how this feels. Obviously, the overall shell looks like it's going to be pretty good. Yeah, I'm glad to hear it. I mean, there's plenty of Arcanists and Tarmogoyfs running around, so the ability to do some chip damage to the graveyard certainly matters. I've been seeing a decent amount of Rug Delver in early results, Twitter screenshots, that sort of stuff. Oh yeah, and plenty of Uro Oko running around as well. Anyway, hope you all are having a great day. You get the special treat of a Phil stream 2 days in a row, so that's pretty cool. Tomorrow my grades are due, so tomorrow morning I'll check my emails and grade any last-minute assignments that the students submitted, and then, you know, by midday I'll be not done working for the school year, but the lion's share of the work will be done. I have an awards ceremony to go to next week. I'm going to have to go in 1 or 2 other days to just, like, pick up some books that I might want for the summer, maybe do some checkout stuff of that general nature. But then I'll just have Latin Academy on my plate for the summer. Trying to do yeah. It feels good. I don't know that there's quite the same feeling in most other jobs where, like, you finish something and it's like, I did it. I now have a 3-month break. It's done. It's over. Like, obviously, any sort of, like, programming job or something of that nature, like, you hit these moments where you finish a major project and it feels good. But with teaching, like, when you finish, like, a little while afterwards, this, like, feeling sets in where it's like, oh my gosh, no, I'm done for so long. Yes, Dr. Bill, unfortunately it is virtual Latin Academy, which is going to be an entirely different beast. It will require a much lower time commitment on my front than a lot of other things that I've done in the past for quote-unquote normal Latin Academy. So I might stream quite a bit more this summer than I did last summer. Okay, so we're playing a Yorion mirror, and I have 3 discard cards, and that's super awkward. That said, I also have this Caracas to bounce my own Yorion, which seems pretty sweet as the game goes long, so I think I'm going to keep this one rather than go down a card. So we'll use this to get the swamp. Because, like, we are definitely getting a swamp this game. Like, given... Whoa! Okay. Alright, so we are playing against Yorion World Gorger combo. Unexpected. I think I'm just going to take the Force of Will here. Like, it's either take... Ooh, main phase Brainstorm. I'm good with that. Like, it's either take the Force of Will or take the Snapcaster Mage. The Goose! Do you think I'm not gonna him? I'm 100% hemming. Am I hemming off basic Swamp, though? That's kind of weird. I guess I am. So blue-blue for Force of Negation, or blue-white for a top deck Teferi are the things to be thinking about in the immediate future. Weird. Yeah, whatever. Ah, we got Animate dead. Nice. So now we know 3 potential cards that our opponent has. But some of that stuff isn't necessarily there anymore. Yeah, I have no idea how. Yikes. Nice hand of discard, idiot. They have 1 card in hand right now. I think I want to just him away the 1 card rather than Thoughtseize, because there's a lot of worlds where I draw a 3-mana threat and I can Thoughtseize to clear the way ahead of time. But I won't necessarily have the mana to him to Turok as well. I'm just going to get buried by this Oko and die. This is the sort of gameplay that I didn't want to come back. Hopefully, future games end up being more interesting than this one. Yeah, so I can play that and wasteland them, but, like, it does me no good. I am ready to concede this game, but I kind of would like my opponent to show me a few more cards. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen if they're just going to aggro Gilded Goose. And get me dead. The draws were trash. I mean, there's something to be said about, like, the opening hand that I kept as well. I don't think I get a clean answer off of this Narset. Do this Oko. I think I'm just going to go ahead and ship this one up here. Ship this one here, rather than, like, show my opponent more cards. Should have technically Thoughtseize first, but, you know. Okay. So, I do need to respect an Animate Dead Yorion loop as well as an Animate Dead Worldgorger Dragon loop. So if my opponent has Animate Dead, Yorion, and any one thing that cantrips, they can draw their entire deck, right? So they go cast, like, Animate Dead a Yorion. The Yorion comes back into play. You blink the Animate Dead and, like, say an Astrolabe. Those things come out. Yorion leaves play, goes to the graveyard. You draw a card when the Astrolabe returns, and you Animate Dead Yorion, and, like, all that stuff just comes back. So I need to respect that in some capacity. So I think Bitter Blossom. I believe it works like that. Oh, shoot. No, you're right. So it's just a slow version of that? Okay, so I'm going to finish my sideboarding and then think that through again. Maybe even Surgical. As these games go long, I really don't want a ton of discard. So I'll probably go, like, some amount of my Thoughtseize is out. The hymns are probably good enough, question mark. Like, they're still value. I can probably trim on the number of Force of Wills and or Swords to Plowshares that I am playing. I don't think I get to board in Rest in Peace here because of my own Snapcaster Mages. Something approximating this is probably okay. Okay, so let's say you animate Dead Yorion. Let's think this through again. Alright, so you animate Dead Yorion, you target two things, it goes to the end step. Alright, never mind. Alright. This is unexciting, but we have, like, Ponder and Brainstorm. I don't even think I'm going to cast either of these on turn 1. It's turn 3 that we want to be good. And I'm also not really expecting Back to Basics or Wasteland from my opponent, so I think I'm just going to lead on Underground Sea and pass. Plan is Ponder on my second turn and just keep the best card of it, I think. It's possible that I should just, like, pass the turn and end of my opponent's turn Brainstorm. This is a reason to either Brainstorm or Ponder now. I have 4 mana sources in hand. I would be comfortable getting rid of 2 of them, especially now that I have Astrolabe for a redraw. So let's go ahead and Brainstorm, and then we'll probably use Prismatic Vista to fetch Island. Oh, those are cards. Okay. So why don't we get rid of Swamp Plains? Yeah, let's get rid of Swamp Plains. Fetch Basic Island. Play an Astrolabe. And now we have a whole bunch of flexible answers to assorted things that our opponent can do. The Drown in the Loch is not really live yet. So in case you're not super familiar with Drown in the Loch, it's based on the number of cards in your opponent's graveyards. Well, technically controller's graveyards, but like your opponent. Are we pondering for anything specific here, or do I just want to Astrolabe? I probably want to leave 2 mana up for Dovin's Veto in the next turn cycle, so I only get to do 1 of these. I think I'm comfortable just playing the Astrolabe out here. I don't know what I am looking for yet with my Ponder. It's probably just a threat, but I don't know for sure. We'll be pretty aggressive with the uses of our counter magic here. I think I'm just going to Ponder looking for a land or a Planeswalker. That's fine. We're good with these cards. Yep. I guess. It's really awkward because like traditional knowledge is that you counter that sort of stuff. But I have 4 counterspells in hand, and I also kind of want them to have extra cards in the graveyard for the Drown in the Lochs. Hold on. We say no to that. Boo. So what our opponent doesn't know here is that the top card of my library is Caracas. So this is why I'm not just like terribly upset about that whole Veil of Summer exchange that just happened there. But it definitely does make my life a little bit more awkward from here. My opponent has 13 cards. They're going to discard a bunch, but that might actually end up fueling some of their shenanigans for a bit later. Yep. So by doing this, my opponent will get to ramp and put another land into play, which means they're going to discard one less card come the end of their turn, so that makes a lot of sense. I'm very happy this is as bad as it gets after they drew 7 cards. Is that worth a counterspell? No, I will just Plague Engineer both of those away on my turn. Let's see how bad the discard situation is. Uro, World Gorger. Dang it. Alright, no, just the Grizzlebrand going back. That's fine. Snake, correct. Snake. This is probably worth a counter spell, but it's borderline. Like, if I counter this, it means whatever my opponent does on their turn resolves. But, like, clearing these things so that Yorion doesn't blink them later is probably pretty important. 8 cards in their graveyard. It seems fine to use one of these. My current assessment of the situation is that our opponent is ahead by quite a bit. That's some very aggressive card drawing. I guess it's fine because they're going to gain a bunch of life back with Uro. But I wonder how necessary that Grizzlebrand is to their plans. Like, could they have just cast Uro instead and, like, maybe dealt with my Plague Engineer or committed another threat to the board as well? Like, maybe they're just trying to overload my Caracas? Like, is that their plan? Like, make it so they either get an Uro attack or Grizzlebrand activation? If that's the case, I should probably just, like, Council's Judgment, like the Uro away permanently, and then bounce the Grizzlebrand. And more on... what does that do? This is interesting, like, once cards get into the graveyard. Yeah, so my opponent has 9 cards in graveyard, so Drown in the Lock is a removal spell for any of their creatures, and then, like, Kai is also a thing. And I also can use Council's Judgment to exile one of them as well. I kind of want to exile Uro and bounce Grizzlebrand forever. Like, if they keep 8 mana hard casting that, I think I'm good with that. Cost both Astrolabes and a Caracas activation to do that, which I think I'm good with. Oh, opponent is F6. Alright. We'll take the Uro out. Yeah, this is definitely a weird one. I really don't know if I've played this game correctly, especially in this last turn here. Because, like, I have the Kaya to be thinking about, which is, like, really good against graveyard-based shenanigans. Leovold, okay. So this is not really going to do much versus a Leovold. I do have Caracas. That's awkward in and of itself. Mentor, have Caracas plus Drown in the Loch, Dovin's Veto available. That's probably fine. Awkward. Very awkward. I don't get to protect against that. Alright. And I don't want to play Kaya into that without the ability to protect it, so we'll wait a turn cycle. Do I care? Gut says no. I have counterspells for Yorion if they play Yorion in this cycle. Ugh, they have so much mana. And like 6 cards. And if I ever do anything during their turn that taps me low, like the threat of Yorion is just looming. Animate Dead on Mentor. That's all sorts of awkward. And now we just get like Veil of Summered and it's beyond awkward and our opponent has our Mentor. And we get forced in this position where we have to cast our Yorion and our opponent has drawn 14 cards, so I can't stop it. Yeah. And that fetch pattern probably means that they have like a force of negation or something that they just want to have available. Do I have to bounce the Leovold here to take potential pressure off of me? Maybe. Yeah. I think I'm going to bounce the Leovold and play towards the line where my Yorion resolves. I'm really far behind. Like, it's bad. Like, I can just cast the Yorion with Karakas backup. Otherwise, like, I play Baleful Strix, and my opponent will drown me in Mentor tokens. Just no fear, draw 2, have the biggest body on board. Stonewall Mentor temporarily. Hope my opponent's removal isn't great at dealing with this. I don't like this. It's possible I need to like play greedier with this Yorion. But I feel pretty dead if opponent has stuff. So we're gonna take our shot now. Snapcaster Entomb in response. Oh, you're gonna Snapcaster Abrupt Decay one of the Astrolabe, so it's only a draw 1. Alright, that's awkward. Own and control is the wording, unfortunately, so we can't take our Mentor back. Yeah, Grizzle Brandon, when I saw Yorion, I basically thought the card was going to be unplayable, given how bad the 80 card requirement seemed to me. I was pleasantly surprised when this actually saw play. Yeah. What else you got? Sure. Dead of Winter would be a pretty hot draw. Alright, Bird has now shut off my Baleful Strix. Good play, opponent. So I think this is opponent just pushing damage. Opponent could play a whole bunch of spells and do prowess things that are cute. In which case I would just bounce my Yorion. I mean, 80 seems like a good sweet spot where it's still reasonable. Alright, so Fatal Push targeting Yorion, which does not actually kill my creature. That's just for a prowess trigger. I'm at 6. Leovold is a nuisance. I guess I have to bounce it here. And play 2 Baleful Strix. They die immediately to state-based effects. That's cool. Yep, we're gonna toss it in here. I don't know that I piloted that one optimally. I'm just gonna be totally honest about that. Like, it's possible I should have countered the Entomb, but I don't know how good that Entomb is for my opponent. Yeah, this is probably fine. The mana's a little weird because of the Hymn to Turok. So I could get Underground Sea on 1, cast Ponder, turn 2 Prismatic Vista for Swamp, and cast him. It's awkward. I think I'm gonna do it. This is a long pause for a Ponder. Yeah, the difference in consistency between a 60 card and 80 card deck Sorry, let me say that again. The difference between a 60 and 80 card Snoko deck isn't really that great, right? Because overall the card quality is so high that you can make it so there isn't a super discernible difference between those things. But the same is not true for every deck. So, like, for example, it's much harder to build something like an 80 card Death and Taxes deck, where the deck is more reliant on consistently having access to certain cards, such as Ether Vial and Thalia. But for the blue mush specifically, ooh, feels like I'm getting stifled. Which I had no way to play around here. Sure. I mean, good thing we have another land here. So the good news is that I am playing against a Delver deck. That was the bad scenario. Alright, so the Hymn to Turok was incredibly awkward for us this game on pretty much every level. Like, it forced us to get the Underground Sea, which got us wastelanded. And if we didn't get wastelanded, then, like, now we have Baleful Strix. I think I'm just going to fire off this Brainstorm in response to this, not because I intend on Force of Willing this Delver, but because I want to see if we can get a land. Yeah, okay, so that's wonderful. It's almost what we want. So we're not going to be fetching a non-basic with this, which means that this is getting us plains for Swords to Plowshares. So the game plan is get this Delver off the board, and then hopefully stick a Narset, minus it, use it to get something that can give us a basic black source for Baleful Strix. Luckily, it looks like our opponent is not on green here. I'm 100% willing to just jam this Narset into an Awkward Daze. I have another one. And if my opponent doesn't have the counterspell, like, sticking that there before they can start cantripping is so strong for me. Do I do it again? I think I do. Because Snapcaster Source the Plowshares later is pretty valuable for removing like an Arcanist that hits play. Let's run that same line back. Alright, yep. So we're paving the way for our removal to be good. Yeah, so Anomalous, we're seeing what it looks like when you don't have an Astrolabe hand and you're playing these Astrolabe piles, right? So like we had a lot of tension in terms of our mana this game. Alright, so that's the fourth counterspell in the game. Opponent had to have something since they didn't have threats, so like I'm not overly surprised there. But that's definitely a little frustrating. We were really hoping they just had like Tarmogoyfs that they couldn't cast. So I can get a black source and play a Baleful Strix and then immediately get this land wastelanded in all likelihood. That sucks. But it looks like it's what I'm doing. Maybe we'll get stifled too. No. If one of these is going to get destroyed, I would rather it be the Scrubland, I think. Okay, I mean, that means we can play the next Baleful Strix next turn. Don't wasteland there. Like, just wait till your turn. See what you draw. Alright. Opponent's of one mind is a 1 mana, draw 2 cards. Essentially, it's a divination unless you have a human and a non-human. Then it's just 1 blue mana, draw 2. Very good for our opponent here. Very bad for me. And I'm basically dead on the spot to another Stifle. We have a Snapcaster Swords of Plowshares for the Young Pyromancer. If my Baleful Strix gets bolted, I might just have to, like, just play Snapcaster Mage as Ambush Viper this turn. Yep. I think my opponent should just turn an Elemental into an Elk and just, like, ship everything. To be honest. Yeah. I don't have clean answers to Oko, right? Like, that's not something that I beat in game one, or really in any games. No access to Pyroblast, no access to a Pithing Needle effect. I can Teferi bounce in Oko. 2 Judgments in the board. Alright, so we're playing against a Delver deck that features Oko. I can just play Bitter Blossom so I die faster. And then I'm less likely to play against Oko. So that would be cool. Council Judgment for Oko is probably necessary. I could try to Mise Winds with Back to Basics. Doman's Veto is interesting. Rest in Peace is interesting. So I think I have 2 Slam Dunks and 6 possibles. What don't I want? The Thought Seizes are awkward when I'm trying to defend my life total. 4 Snapcaster Mage might be excessive, but like again, access to our removal seems good. I think Narset frequently is not going to be doing what I want, because like it's a Planeswalker that doesn't protect itself. I could see going down on those. I could see trimming Force of Wills as well. The counterspells are going to be kind of awkward because like my opponent can bail. Like, I need to assume that Tarmogoyf and Dreadhorde Arcanist, or threats of that ilk, are in my opponent's deck. So that incentivizes me to bring in Rest in Peace, which is also awkward with my Snapcaster Mages. Although I think like the Snapcaster Mage is getting my removal back is pretty important. Like Snapcaster Dead of Winter in the end game is devastating. Rest in Peace resolving against my opponent is also probably very good. I don't know about the Rest in Peace like Snapcaster Mage situation. I can't cast this Hymn. I'm super vulnerable to Wasteland. So this hand's great against Stifle, bad against Wasteland. Good against creature heavy hands. Yikes. I'm going to keep this play Tundra pass. If my opponent Wastelands me, I'll Brainstorm in response, trying to find like Astrolabe or more lands. Because like with Astrolabe, Plains Scrubland could cast him or the bird. This is not the rock solid mana base that I was expecting to have. I was told there would be consistency. Don't I play like 3 or 4 non-basics in this whole deck? Isn't it like Caracas, Tundra, Scrub, CC, or something like that? This is statistically unlikely. And now I wish I had led on a different land. I don't think I'm going to Baleful Strix into Daze. I'm just going to play another land and pass, and then we'll him on 3. I see myself casting not Brainstorm in the next couple of turns, so I'm just gonna Brainstorm here and kind of like help to plan out my next turn cycle. Oh, great. So because of this Plague Engineer, I think I want to play towards resolving this and dealing with either the Pyromancer or the Elemental tokens that way. So to play towards that, I'm actually going to cast Hymn to Turok this turn and try to either get a Force of Will out of my opponent or whittle down the number of cards in hand so it's more likely that the Plague Engineer both resolves and sticks around. Oh man, what a good time to cast that. Yeah, Connor, I don't know how many Oko decks you played against, but I'm not loving how afraid I am of my opponent casting an Oko on like every single turn of this game. Hey Jerry, welcome. I'm glad I'm still beautiful even though you can't see me. It's like an intrinsic trait. That's good. Rough. Yeah, webcam broke. New one is ordered. It'll be here next week. It'll be an upgrade over what I have now. Although it's a little disappointing how much I had to pay to get it. Yeah, so at first it stopped like working intermittently, and then like I booted it up, I got it working again, and there was just this like flash of white light across the screen a couple of times. And I rebooted my computer going like, oh, I got it to work. It's just a little weird. And then it would never start up again. Oh, great. So I'm going to get double dazed. My opponent is going to make a whole bunch of elementals. And then I'm just going to die at a board. Yeah. Yeah. Connor, I'm starting to think you were on a hot streak. The discard is feeling really bad. In both of the rounds so far, my opponent have just had like card advantage engines that have just totally invalidated my initial discard spells. So like I hymned my opponent there to try to make an opening, and they just immediately turned around and cast Up One Mind. Or against the Yorion opponent, like I kept a hand that was discard heavy, and then just like the looming threat of Yorion made it so the discard wasn't that great. I don't know if this deck should be playing discard. Like, I wonder if there are other alternatives. Like, maybe we'll play against the combo side of the meta, and, like, these will feel, like, totally awesome and great, because, like, discard plus counter magic plus, like, powerful threats is a great recipe. But in these two rounds so far, discard has felt rough. Like, and I don't know how to beat Oko. We shall see. All right, let's go in here for round 3. We've got some redemption to do. I haven't even put up a game win yet. Oh, this little avatar thing is kind of sweet. Okay, there we go. I guess we keep these, like, one land Astrolabe Ponder hands and probably get there. JK, we're gonna get stifled turn 1 and die. This is also awkward, right? Like, Thoughtseize is a card you want to cast on turn 1 just about every time, but so is Astrolabe. My opponent won't. Oh, never mind. JK. Is there anything I'm super scared of coming down on 2? Arcanist is kind of awkward. I think I want to fetch this turn and play around Stifle. Stifle's super devastating on board. Alright, so I have an Astrolabe this game, so now I have basically every color combination that I could want, which is cool. I see myself pondering. I could cast an inefficient ponder this turn, or I could just not ponder. Let's just see what's up with my opponent's hand. There's worlds where they are just a combo deck as well. Okay, we're doing this again. Alright. We're playing against Food Chain. How do we beat Infinity Griffins? We don't? So I'm soft to the Food Chain itself coming down. Fuck. Alright. So this means that they have Miss Hollow Griffins forever, and I can literally never answer them. My out is them not having 4 lands. I could Fairy Bounce the Food Chain and then counter it on the way back down long term. I think that's an okay plan. We would need 3 Plague Engineers. Instead, we'll put it on Snake for Ice Fang Coatl. My opponent has a walking ballista. I'm going to take their word for it and just concede. Yeah, that sucks to click through. Not worth my time, not worth their time. Okay, so we're playing against Food Chain, which is a basics heavy deck. I need a couple of answers to the Food Chain itself. Those will be Council's Judgments, and this can counter it. Deafening Silence. Each player can't cast more than one non-creature spell each turn. Not so much there. I could consider Bitter Blossoms. It's just like super awkward once my opponent plays a 3/3 Griffin. Otherwise, it's the sort of grindy card that I would like. So I'll maybe think about that. Like, these Thought Seizes and Hymns just feel so bad when all my opponents are casting Baleful Strix and Yorion and Astrolabes and like these cards that are replacing themselves. I'm super down on the discard. My opponent might have Uro, so I should respect Kaya and not board it out. Dead of Winter gets non-snow creatures, which is actually relevant in this matchup. I don't know. Like, let's maybe just junk all of my discard spells and then just play reasonable Magic with this stuff. I don't know if that's correct. Because, like, Force of Will is going to feel bad a lot of times, but, like, I need the Force of Wills and Force of Negations to help deal with the Food Chain specifically. I guess. Yeah, we also can't beat a Resolve Manipulate Fate. I probably need to put this on top and hide it. Yeah, like, let's hide, I guess, like, a Jace and this. And you can see the rest of this hand. Ooh. It's a little unexpected, but fine. So now I have Veto for a Manipulate Fate or Food Chain. I will need to fetch if my opponent doesn't cast anything this turn. I do not want that other Jace. And conveniently, this doesn't necessarily telegraph this card, it's just showing that I want all of my colors. Alright, so we have counterspells for days. My opponent's going to play an Ice Fang Coatl here in all likelihood. Yep, not worth forcing. Although it will probably get a decent amount of damage, and it won't get eaten by Dead of Winter. Absolutely not. Yeah, so I guess we'll veto this. And if our opponent casts a Veil, we have to use one of our forces. I don't really like showing that, but I also like using my mana. Alright, so now we just have Force of Negation hard cast with Force of Will backup for any big play that our opponent has. But I still have nothing to do. Would I just jam a Jace if I drew a land? Yes? Like, Force of Will plus a Griffin is something that my opponent would be pretty likely to have. I can win that fight, but not if they also have Veil. I should probably respect my own Dead of Winter and up my blue count here. Or not my blue count, my snow count. I do not mind these cards in the slightest. I'll hide the Mentor on top for later. I don't know if I'd force an Ice Fang Coatl. It's still not threatening Jace. It's just awkward that Dead of Winter doesn't kill these things. I don't think I can force this. Like, there's too many cards, like Oko, that would be scary. Thosmunker, thank you very much for throwing your Twitch Prime support this way this month. Don't know how long that has been there, but very much appreciate it. Let's get this updated. Boop. Okay, my opponent took no other action. I will want to Jace plus and just keep the Jace alive, I guess. It's possible that I should just treat Jace as double Brainstorm and try to fix my hand, which is kind of bad, but I'm fine with just, like, scrying away my Wasteland and then saving my fetch for later. I don't think I just ram out Mentor before I can play another spell with it. Abrupt Decay is another card that my opponent could very likely have. God, why the third? Why the third Ice Fang Coatl? I want to keep this Jace alive. Yeah, and because this is a Force of Negation, this is, if it's not your turn, you can exile this to do it for free, but it is my turn, so I can't actually fight back here. That means my Jace dies, and this Dead of Winter not being able to kill snow creatures is brutal here. Food chain generally eats decks like my deck alive, but some of the specifics of deck construction here are particularly rough. Alright, this is a terror. Kaya off the top would be okay. Like, exile that Uro before it comes back. A cantrip would be fine, so I can just play Mentor. Guess that's what we're doing. Mentor, Astrolabe. Is there any 1-mana thing that could draw? Yes, but it doesn't matter because I'll have fixing at that point. Alright, Mentor, can you steal this game? I really hope you can steal this game. Alright. I have no answer to the eventually forthcoming Uro. I'll have 4 or 5 snow permanents. I can technically maybe Dead of Winter it away. Those fly. My monks don't jump very well, so no blocks. Force and Negation does not counter that. That means Mentor is dead. Opponent will go for it. Cool. That can answer Uro as well, kind of. Get in there, little monk buddy. And it's possible that I'm supposed to cast Yorion here, but I'd like to maybe Dead of Winter and use that to answer the Uro. I don't know, like maybe I can't wait any longer to play spells. Like this game isn't going well for me. I'm behind, I'm dying to snakes. And I also don't have the last snow permanent I need until I drew that to actually answer the Uro. So the hope here is kind of that our opponent plays conservatively and doesn't just jam the Uro. Doesn't look like that's what's happening. Yeah, this non-snow clause is real rough in the mirror and pseudo mirrors. I'm going to confirm that I do have another basic to get. I believe I do. I don't know what my basic count is in ratio. Okay. Yeah, I'm good there. Yeah, sneak the point of damage. That was pretty good, Captain QC. I enjoyed that. Alright. This feels pretty dreadful. I am just going to die to these snakes. Like, the Uro's coming back. Dead of Winter is, like, normally the card that I'm supposed to use in these sorts of situations, but it doesn't work here. Like, I have the threat of Looming Griffins, the threat of Uro coming back. JK, Uro's probably back now. 5 cards. Yeah, there it is. And Uro is, interestingly, quite good against Drown in the Lock, because it eats away at graveyards. It's possible that I'm supposed to Drown and Lock one of these snakes, but I'm sort of hoping to draw cards that aren't in my deck. That 1 mana floating overtap question mark. I probably have to use a Force of Negation here. Like, this is what's going to counter that Uro when it comes down. Yikes. Do it again. Do it again. All right, we're done. Man, I think my deck is bad. But welcome anyway. It feels like a very bad time to be playing discard. We've gotten paired against decks with great sources of card advantage multiple rounds in a row, and I've just gotten buried. Veto is also a non-creature. Alright, good to know. I thought it was just uncounterable counterspell. Yeah, so like, yeah, Veil of Summer also a problem. So like the hymns have been super awkward to cast in terms of our mana on non-Astrolabe draws. Like Thoughtseize has felt very bad because our opponents are just playing Icefang Coatls. I don't have good answers to Oko. Like, ever. Like, I have to counter an Oko. And if I don't counter an Oko, I don't know how I beat it. Like, it involves, like, Teferi bouncing and then countering it later. Have I even strung together a game win yet? No, I have not strung together a game win yet. Yeah, so, like, Connor was on a heater earlier. He was, like, 11-2 with this deck list. But I am really struggling. Like, obviously, I will fully admit that I'm probably not piloting optimally, and maybe I should be, like, mulliganing more. Well, Jadeheim, yeah, I think that's part of the problem with Oko in the format, right? Like, most decks just can't answer that card well if you're not in red for Pyroblast. It's rough. And this is what I was so afraid of. Like, when I saw the bannings, like, if you listen to the podcast, you already heard me talking about it. But I'm so worried about Oko. Oko Yorion piles or just Oko piles just taking over this format, and it's so miserable to play against because it's so hard to answer. Like, doesn't easily die to bolt. You don't just have, like, nice, clean, cheap Planeswalker answers. So I have a basic of every color. I have a counterspell for an early something, but I have, like, no cantrips to hold this land together. Uh, uh. So I would say I have 20, 24, 26, 27, 28. I'd say I have 28 draws that turn this hand into a good hand. Normally that would be like half my deck. That's not the case when I'm playing an 80 card deck. Oh. I do indeed. Thank you very much for the continued support. Well, let's go ahead and tick that up. Alright, we got one of our draws that turned this into a good hand. Reaplecheap, to be fair, when I saw Oko, I immediately dismissed that card as not playable. Like, I read that card once and I went, there's no way that sees play, it doesn't do anything, and I moved on with my life. Admittedly, I was pretty wrong on that one. Wait, hold up. Like, that actually happened? Like, for real? They didn't realize you could... Oh my god. Yikes. Wow. That is disappointing. So we're going to die to a top deck, natural order, but we have force of negation, so that's okay. What am I doing turn 3? I guess just like jamming Mentor, holding up force of negation as interaction. Not playing Narset, but I'm going to play a Prismatic Vista anyway. It's pretty likely that I'm just going to not do anything on my opponent's turn. But there's worlds where if my opponent attacks with Elvish Visionary or maybe Dryad Arbor, I'll just play Snapcaster Mage as a removal spell on one of their creatures. So our opponent has Land, Heritage, Druid, Mystery card in hand. That said, I still don't think we like gamble on that one. There's too many things that can go wrong. Oh god, they have the natural order too? Oh no, okay, that's fine. In that case, do I play Ambush Viper? Ambush Viper on Thoughtseize does nothing. I don't know. The Snapcaster is pretty valuable later on if I draw a cantrip, because I go like cantrip, Snapcaster cantrip in one turn cycle and generate a bunch of monks. Alright, yeah. So like Brainstorm is definitely the sort of thing that I want to see. So we'll get Island here. We'll end up getting another Island with Prismatic Vista the following turn. We are in trouble if our opponent top decks Natural Order or I think Green Sun. I haven't done the math for Green Sun. This is definitely the Dead of Winter matchup where it would be good. Again, Thoughtseize seems very bad here. Like, my opponent's a combo deck, but they're also this, like, Elvish Visionary card advantage Glimpse of Nature deck. I don't know that I'll end up boarding out the discard, but, like, conceptually, I'm, like, really not on board with discard in Legacy right now. Alright. Oh, that's just a Wirewood Symbiote. That's okay. That means there's a slow death coming, not an immediate death. So that's nice. JK. I don't know that I'm going to get a single game win tonight, folks. That's kind of how it's feeling right now. Just like 05, 010 league. I don't even feel like I get good tools out of the sideboard. Like, I can get a couple more counter spells for Natural Order, but my opponent is probably not even on the Natural Order plan. They're going to be on the Grind Me Out plan. So this is more for Glimpse. I can play Council's Judgment as an out to Progenitus. But it, like, otherwise sucks when I draw it. I can try to Mise Winds off Back to Basics if I want. Kaya seems awesome. Narset seems okay if I can also defend it, which might be tricky. Jace seems pretty bad. Discard seems medium at best. Now, the Palette Cleanser will come Saturday. I think we're going to play this Saturday. It's a Karuga deck. DJ Isma, or however I'm supposed to say that, crafted up something like this, which I very lightly adapted after his suggestions. I think I'm going to give this a spin this weekend. I would like to play first. Fuck this deck, Connor. Never mind, I have a Prismatic Vista. I thought I just had, like, Plains, Island, Wasteland, and, like, I couldn't cast my spells. This isn't as bad as I thought. But, like, this hand's still bad. Like, I thought seize them, I take their best card, I play a Baleful Strix, I hope to draw into a blue card so I can force a will and not die. I guess. I'm not happy. Ah, why is my opponent's deck so good? Captain QC with the excellent troll there. Yes, TL Hunter, the webcam is broken. I'll be back on screen next week. I am in good health. The legacy format, on the other hand, whew, whew, rough shape. Well, Bill Jackson, it's more like 80 card decks versus anything right now. I don't know, like I'm not down for what's happening here. Like, I need to play the Baleful Strix to advance my board, but if I do so, I just, like, die to this Glimpse of Nature, so I can't play anything this turn. I just need to play Island and pass. And after I Force a Will this Glimpse of Nature so that I don't die, I have nothing left. Like, literally nothing. I just have all lands. There's a world where I wasteland the Dryad Arbor there, but I'm going to play towards worlds where I draw Brainstorm into something like Kaya and take over this game. I believe Maxtortion posted a Splinter Twin list earlier today. I don't know if it was his invention, but I saw he was messing around with it. What is this? Morph? Nope. Dead? Morph. Okay. Morph is fine. Alright, no attack, respecting the Snapcaster Mage. Alright. I don't think I can keep all of these cards. Mentor alone is tempting. Like, play Mentor, fetch away the 2 counterspells. That means I don't just easily die to board. I guess. It, however, does not bring me joy. Hey, Nathan. I saw that you went on a decent win streak that you posted about. Congrats on that. Hope all is well. Dead? Feels like dead. All right. We're going to see if we can go for the perfect 05-010. I have faith in me. I have not done much playing of Magic tonight. I've stumbled over myself almost every round. I've had a lot of opening hand problems. I've had a lot of hands where I've like tried to keep them with a decent number of draws being good and things haven't panned out. My Yorion is not drawing as many cards as I'm expecting. I think the most I've gotten out of it is 2. And I think most of the time I cast it, I got 1. Like, my stuff's not living to blink. The Hymn to Turox have been incredibly difficult to cast. I mean, Connor and I already figured this out prior to the stream, but, like, there's 1 Snapcaster Mage too many here. I don't know that I have enough removal, which is weird to say, but I've just died to stuff. Like, Ice Fang Coatls on the other side of the table were really problematic due to Dead of Winter. Not sweeping them. And, like, the times that we've had Kaya, like, my opponent has already been ahead on board, and then Kaya doesn't do much. I don't know. Let's see if we can do something. Julian. Alright. Julian's playing what he was playing earlier today. He's going to be playing the, like, Esper pile. Oh, nope. No Yorion. I think he was playing Esper Yorion earlier. I don't know. I guess I keep this hand. I'm on the play. I get to thought seize my opponent. And then hopefully Brainstorm saves me. We do have 2 Plague Engineers already. I don't know that we want more than that. It should be quite late in Germany, I believe. Okay, so my opponent is still playing the Esper Vile deck. In which case, what do I want to do here? I take the Force of Will so my Brainstorm is guaranteed to resolve, and I don't just get stuck with a billion lands. But I lean towards just taking Baleful Strix so that, like, Baleful Strix Soul Herder doesn't potentially get going. I don't know, the Teferi is also very problematic if I can't interact with my opponent at instant speed. And that's probably the card that I'm most afraid of in the long term. Although, like, Baleful Strix giving my opponent a redraw towards more lands is pretty valuable. I'm going to take the Strix. So I think I will go ahead and Brainstorm now. Because I would totally... Oh, good God. Because I would totally cast an Astrolabe or a... My opponent desperately looking for the next land. We have some we could trade. Esper has a pretty atrocious mana base, so the Wasteland that I have is very strong here. So like my opponent was already short on lands, and now I get to take them off one. My opponent shuffled with the Ponder, by the way. I'm going to just start improving my snow count for Dead of Winter reasons. Ooh. That is mighty interesting. I think I just do that later, though. I can play Mentor on this board and force my opponent to use their force, or I can wait until I can Force of Will back, which is probably better. Yeah, I think we're just going to play patiently here. It gives my opponent time to draw out of this, but like I'm drawing towards a billion different blue cards in my deck. And I really want to just play this Mentor this turn and plow that Baleful Strix. But I know that my opponent has Force of Will. Like, it's right there. I've seen it. So I don't think it is correct for me to do so. I mean, it's probably not all that bad to just play something like Rug Delver. I'm sure that's fine right now. Like, Winter Orb seems pretty crushing against the Yorion decks. And Clothis seems good as well. Like, our opponent was super mana screwed, and we had no ability to capitalize on that, just based on the cards that are in our deck. And that super sucks. So do I Force of Will this, just hard cast it, and then if my force gets forced, you just go for Mentor and Swords on my turn? I think I do. I'm too worried about alternative universes where I try to Swords to Plowshares and then like I don't draw something to go with the Mentor and I just like die. Julian has said, it's turn 6 and I still don't know what I'm up against. Well, Julian, that's because I'm not doing anything. Yes. Mentor, Drown in the Lock, Swords to Plowshares. Seems good. And yeah. Another Force of Will would be rough. Should have technically fetched as to like not telegraph Drown in the Lock as much. But I'm probably casting it on whatever my opponent plays this turn. And I just don't want to like fetch and then have something happen to my mentor as an intermediate step. I will be recording with D&T for the next 5 weeks. I've received a couple of donations for assorted deck lists. So I'll be doing some interesting things. Countered this. Would I trade Mentor for Baleful Strix and just bash in for 2? Probably not, so we'll just attack with some monks. Yorion doesn't do anything yet by playing it, like with the Baleful Strix still around. So I'm not just going to like play it out here. Yeah, while Mirren Crusader as a card might be good against the blue-green meta, Death and Taxes cannot compete with Oko decks, just full stop. It invalidates everything that that deck does. I guess that's okay. Nope, it's uncastable. Connor, what have you done to me? Because this like meddling mage exists, it didn't get pitched, right? Or it did get pitched. So it's not 100% a meddling mage anymore. But because of the existence of meddling mage, I should really consider just jamming Yorion this turn and taking a draw 1 out of it. It increases the chance that I will just like play a couple of cantrips next turn and do cool things with my mentor tokens, my monk tokens. All right, we're gonna be here a while. Any targeted removal spell is fine. Oh yeah, I have a billion good draws. That counts. I just play that now. I can't. I could cast him first, him then Plague Engineer. Something's going to come down off a vial. It comes down now. Flicker Wisp and Recruiter. Great. I think you've been getting lucky, Connor, honestly. Like, it does not... I am not going to claim that I've played perfectly tonight, but I just feel like I have tripped all over my own cards all week. Alright, so this answers stuff, so we'll play it. This is awkward because it counters a non-creature spell, and we really want to be countering creature spells. Bitter Blossom is interesting. Back to Basics is interesting. I'm going to start by boarding out Hymn to Torok. Like, my opponent is a late game card advantage deck, so I don't think this is where I want to be when I'm on the draw. I probably can't afford Bitter Blossom because, like, there's going to be weird lines where Peacekeeper just ends up killing me, or, like, Plague Engineer on Rogue or Fairy beats me. Back to Basics is really interesting. Like, my opponent's mana base is admittedly pretty bad. Like, they're this 3-color Wasteland deck. So I should probably try to take some free wins with that. Like, maybe trim more discard for that. Oh. Like, another problem is that I can't pressure opposing Planeswalkers super well, right? So, like, if my opponent just sticks it to Fairy, like, in most cases, I'm going to have to rely on something like Snapcaster to pressure it. I'm just not having faith. As a whole. I will keep this. Black. Throw this one to death for back to basics. Curve Astrolabe into Baleful Strix. It also really depends on what Julian does with his mana and whether or not he's anticipating back to basics. Because if he doesn't fetch like non-basic here, it's not going to make a lot of sense for me to actually just slam this back to basics early. Maybe I still will, but it's pretty unlikely. Alright, so he has played around back to basics. Oh, that's fine. I will play my own Baleful Strix. Passing with Drown in the Lock is kind of awkward when my opponent just has 2 cards in the graveyard, because they're most likely to play a 3-drop in this turn cycle, and my Drown in the Lock would not answer that. Yeah, 100% snap trade due to things like Soul Herder that can come down, and this also makes my future Drown in the Lock better. It's just awkward if my opponent plays a Planeswalker here. A Recruiter. Alright, the chain begins. Alright. Unexpectedly, it is Soul Herder. I just Drown in the Lock my opponent's play on their turn, in all likelihood. What am I doing with my mana otherwise? I can play an Astrolabe or a Ponder. Ponder doesn't seem great yet. Although finding a Force of Will or Force of Negation so I can Drown in the Lock with backup is pretty good. I think I'm just going to start with an Astrolabe redraw. This game, our Yorion will be very good. Like, when we get to that point, it's going to be great. I don't really want to counter this, but I have a billion cards in hand, and this would give my opponent a redraw. So I am just going to go ahead and do that. I like worlds where my opponent gets stuck on mana. I like that a lot. This turn I could Ponder and then fetch for yet another basic land and still hold Drown in the Lock up. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Just start looking for something like a Plague Engineer or a Force of Will. Baleful Strix is okay, but I think I'm just going to shuffle and take a random. Brainstorm's great. I'll probably just cast that on my opponent's turn in response to whatever spell they do, and then Drown in the Lock their spell. Meddling Mage. I don't know that I'll Drown in the Loch that. I would rather use a removal spell on it, but let's brainstorm to plan out what's going to happen. Let's put back Astrolabe, land. Kaya does, like, borderline nothing. Probably playing Narset with Force of Will back up on my turn, question mark. I think I just keep trading 1-for-1 with my opponent. For as long as I can. I don't know what Julian will name with the Meddling Mage. But I still have, like, Force of Will for something that's, like, legitimately scary. And now Source of Plowshares as well. Another Astrolabe. I guess that's good, like, for Yorion reasons. Did I play it? I think I play it. Strix is fine. The real question is, like, do I Source the Plowshares, Recruiter, or the Guard? To keep my Narset at 1 more loyalty. Yeah, yikes. I let the Ether Vial happen and just answer it with Kaya. Based on current board, I am now 100% Swords of Plowsharing this Recruiter. Alright, Julian has conceded here. And because I am dead for prizes, I am just going to concede to him. Alright, so we ended up 1-4 in this league. Overall, the deck felt very clunky. I was not happy with the suite of cards that I had access to. Oko was problematic. All of the cantripping creatures my opponents were playing were problematic. Dead of Winter not answering snow creatures was a problem. The black of Hamda Turok was very rough because of the number of basic lands that I'm playing. And I'm also playing Wastelands. So, like, all in all, I didn't really feel like I did anything well. And it sucks to say that. But that was my experience this league. Like, I don't have the ability to pressure opposing planeswalkers well. I'm not as good at keeping things around for Yorion to blink as other Yorion decks are. Like, even when Julian mulliganed in game 1 of that match and, like, got stuck on 1 land, I just couldn't do anything that mattered. Yeah, and, like, it's fine. I'm okay that the deck went poorly, you know? Like, I've been paid. You know? Like, not every league goes well. But I expected a much better performance from this deck. I'm not going to lie. Like, when I looked at this deck, I initially got pretty excited about it. And then when it got to actual matches, I just did not feel like I was playing a competitive deck. Like, maybe we got the wrong end of the matchup spectrum. But I don't know. Just didn't work. It's also like especially troubling that in the first 4 rounds we lost all 4, but we also didn't put up a game win at all in those 4 rounds. So Connor, I don't know what to tell you moving forward with the deck. Like, small changes seem good, but I don't know. This league felt like it displayed a bunch of weaknesses that I would be really worried about in playing this deck, right? So if Legacy is going to end up being sort of like this mid-rangey arms race where you're trying to go like a little bit bigger than your other opponent, so you end up being the better Yorion deck, I don't know that we're quite there. And we're certainly not going under the other like Yorion Oko decks, right? Like, we're not doing anything quickly. We also have like the 80 card problem where we're a little bit less consistent and variance has a higher impact on what I'm doing. Yeah, exactly. So maybe this is not the right time for this. All right. On Saturday, we're gonna try to play something as a palate cleanser. We're gonna play with some Klothys main deck, and hopefully that that bullies some of the Oko Uro decks out of existence. That would be a lot of fun. I don't know that that's actually the case because those decks are very good. But hopefully, if we do some powerful things quickly, again, like with soul lands and spirit guides and such, hopefully we'll have a better shot of doing some things that matter. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed tonight. I don't know if I announced this on yesterday's stream or not, but in June, Travis Parsley of the Legacy Pit is going to come onto the channel as a guest, and we are going to play some Pox on stream. Hopefully some of the Oko stuff dies down by then, so things go well. But that's something to look forward to. There's also a new emote potentially in the mix sometime soon. I've started talking with my artist about it. And anyway, I hope you all have a great rest of the night. I'm going to turn you over to Shoals Cubed for the Legacy Double Dash event. Have a great rest of the night, folks. If you're not already following and love Legacy, please consider following. And if you really enjoy my content, please consider doing a donation deck list. I have Saturday's stream planned out. It's going to be this one as a Dealer's Choice League, but I have none of next week planned out. Have a great rest of the night, folks. Jadeham, if you talk to me some other time when I am streaming, I will be happy to talk about Isaac more. I love that game.